Hello, everybody, and welcome to our worldwide audience with EON Reality. And we're so excited today to have Sajjad Hussain, a senior lecturer and associate professor at the James Watt School of Engineering at the University of Glasgow in the UK. And Sajjad is an expert in wireless communication. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sajjad give a little background. That's an area that it's a specialty and it's so important today. So welcome, Sajjad.
Thank you very much, Renah. It's a pleasure to be here. Honored to be part of this webinar series. I'm Sajjad Hussain. I'm a senior lecturer in James Watt School of Engineering at University of Glasgow. My research background is in the area of wireless communications, and I do my research on um, uh, contemporary and futuristic wireless systems like 5G communications, some of the use cases of 5G communications, and I relate that research with my scholarly research. So I have my interest in the technology enhanced learning to improve the student experience. So this gels my disciplinary research gels very well with my scholarly research. So for example, I've been involved in doing projects on the use of remote robotic experiments where we use 5G network to provide low latency communication between the robotic arm and the actual the remote lab experiment. So we have been looking at different ways, and AR, VR, augmented, and virtual reality is another use case where 5G communications can come into play to reduce the delays and provide a real-time experience to the remote users. So both my disciplinary and scholarly research, as I said, they go hand by hand, and they are very have been helping me in developing my career and doing the projects that I am involved in at the moment at the University of Glasgow.
Fantastic. I'm going to try to keep up with you. I mean, my background's in biomedical engineering, so but 5G has been life-changing for a lot of people. And I know for me, traveling around the world, having 5G is, just easier to access information. And actually in EON-XR, it seems to be fantastic when you don't have internet or you're away, because I do a lot of augmented reality. I love augmented reality, being out there in real space and bringing in models. So I use 5G all the time now with my latest mobile device. So thank you for that.
No, we are just part of that research, ongoing research to mainly to develop the use cases, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in education, uh, physical education, physical training. So there are so many use cases of 5G that are coming up, and you know, doing the remote surgery, letting the people doing some experiments remotely without having the experience of delays. So real-time experiences over 5G, these are very critical to provide a good quality of experience to the users.
That's a great place to start with surgeries, only because I have personal experience with physicians here in California that do brain surgery from their house. They're doing the recommendations and looking at the scans, and then working in tandem with the surgeons in the operating suite. So using 5G, and so and it's actually, it's a huge change in the way that's done, but also even in lifestyle change, because people doing work from home like that, it's a pretty new modality, the new surgeons.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, as you know, we were all bound to our homes, and yeah, especially the academics, they were forced to do the online lecturing. And in engineering, as you know, the hands-on work, the practical work is of very much importance. So we were not allowed to go into the labs, and the students were not able to do the labs. So in that case, in that sort of situation, all these techniques, all these technologies, and with, of course, augmented and virtual reality to support and provide a real world experience to the users. These are, these are the themes that have emerged really well over this period of pandemic. And I don't feel they are going to stop anywhere. It's going to be, because the expectation levels of our customers or students, I should say, that they have been raised. Okay, so now they have been exploited to this technology, and they would be expecting this more and more integration in their routinely learning activities. So this is something um, due to pandemic, which has created this step change in the expectations and the experience of academics as well as students.
Absolutely. I mean, when I remember, I'll never forget in March, I guess it was 2019 now, when I said, okay, don't come back for the rest of the term. And I teach also in the lab.
It was 2020, Renah.
2020, see how long it's been? Seems like it's been 5 years. I was like, okay, well, because I teach recording engineering, film and television. It's all hands-on in labs, special software. And the problem for me, and maybe you can chime in on this, is the student engagement. So, students, the first tendency, it seemed like on Zoom, was just turn off the camera, turn off the microphone, go away. You're at class, but you're not, so you can't really tell if they're engaging. So, I try to do breakout groups and have them do projects and come back and present. But, with EON or with, for example, when I do bring in a model and I'm interacting with it, you can't ignore that. Either you're interacting with it or not. So it seems like when I bring that in with students and then they have to, create an experience, go find a model, do that, bring in knowledge, use artificial intelligence. There's things that they're doing, it really improved the student engagement for me. So I was going to ask you about during the pandemic, that's just the idea is to keep people learning hands-on as much as possible, have a different experience.
Yeah. So you're spot on, and especially with a screen in front of you, it's very hard to stay focused. There are so many things that your email pops up, any message comes up on WhatsApp, Facebook. It's very hard to stay engaged in an online setting. And the other issue that I wanted to highlight was that the generation that we are, in terms of the student generation I'm talking about, that we are having in academia, they are kind of the generation that they want the real-time response. They want quick, efficient, and customized response. So these guys are so used to of using the mobile phones, that touch screen feeling and all that stuff. So although these students, which are in their teens or early 20s, they haven't been exposed to that much of technology, but in few years, the students that we will be having, they are born with the mobile phones. They have seen the mobile phones when in their first year and second year, and they know how to play YouTube videos and all that stuff. So this generation is very demanding. Let me just give you an example. Some time ago, I saw something on YouTube. It was just a 5-minute video. I thought I should share it with my son. So I called him and I said, let's have a look at this video. And before the video started, he asked me, how long is this video? And I said, it's only 5 minutes. And he said, 5 minutes? So this is the attention span that this generation has. Even so, these are TikTok generation. They just want 30-second, 1-minute thing. So limited attention span. So unfortunately or fortunately, this is something that has developed, and the academia needs to respond to this. Historically, unfortunately, the academia is quite very resistant to change. It's not. It's a very smooth kind of environment. It does not change very rapidly. But currently now the situation has changed in a way, and the pandemic has been a catalyst for that change. That I would say academia has to take some very revolutionary steps to keep the students' audience engaged. And if they don't do that, I'm afraid we will keep having these issues of engagement and keeping the students engaged during the learning process. As you may know already, some short certificates. For example, Google has started the 6-month certificates with it, just giving you the focus training and get over you're ready for the employability for a specific sector. So the question is, would the next generation be willing to spend 3 or 4 years in the university, a huge amount of fees, and stick to that education model, or they will be going for this TikTok type educational model, right? So this is something that all the academics should be concerned and worried about, and see how they can adapt to this revolution.
I'm just interested. I just had a thought that I didn't think of before, because I know one of the problems with that learning is that you miss a lot of the things like writing, reading, problem solving, communicating. I wonder, and I never thought about this before, if some of those the critical the first 2 years of your higher education experience, if people are going to go for certificates, when does that happen? Does that happen when you start work? Because you're going to send bad emails, bad grammar, you're not going to be able to communicate.
It's not all about communication. It's about living a life. When you are at a university, when you are at a campus, you meet with people, you know how to deal with people, you know how to live with the society, you know how to communicate, as you said. So it's not only written communication, it's verbal communication, it's your physical, your body, how movements, how you interact with people. So it's all about that. So obviously, this is not something that people would like to miss upon, but is that there should be something in it for the people to get engaged and excited about going to the university.
Absolutely. Then I was thinking about the attention span thing. I'm going to share my screen for a second. So looking at, I have a bunch of examples, but when I show my students, like if I say, okay, I want you to, in my classes, it's mostly looking at recording equipment or film equipment, but this is an example I just have of a circuit board. So when I show them, you can get these models now in giant libraries, like Sketchfab is my favorite, just because I love the way that they preview stuff, and then you can teach. I can show them this. One of the things I found, and maybe I'm a culprit of it too, is finding these models is one of the things that's like TikTok, because when you mention it, I just realized that's maybe why I like it so much. So when I go into any of these experiences, like here's another one, and I find these models and I go, oh, there's animated. This is so fun for me, to see this. And I can go through, just flip through these models, and then they import like JPEGs or PDFs as zip files into EON. And so I wanted to talk about that for a minute, because you brought up a really good point, is, students and adults like me that multitask, and I'm a media person, but I personally enjoy that experience of going through models and then finding things that I can learn from, or I enjoy, or I want to see what it's like in AR. I mean, honestly, I love that process. And I'm wondering, it's something that I love to talk about academics about, between making lessons or having students make lessons, kind of flipping the classroom in a way. And maybe I think this way because one of my assignments I have students do is make a documentary about anything they want. They have to check in with me, but it's subjects that I would never think of. During the pandemic, some of my students talked about food safety. So things I would never come up with that were just fascinating in their communities. And so, in AR/VR, the same thing, like I'll have an assignment, do a set design, and then I'll have an example, but I have them go searching through and then check in with me on what they're going to do. And then they plot out their own project and learn that way. I kind of feel like it's the same way I've taught film all this time. It's just now we're using 3D instead of 2D. I want to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a quite wide discussion that might make me a comment which is a bit controversial,
Yes.
but to me it's factual. So let me first say from the academic perspective, when someone is teaching a subject or a module for so many years, 1 to 3 years, they wouldn't, or most of the academics are not willing to change the way they are teaching because it needs some extra effort, and they are not willing to pay that attention or extra effort because of the way the universities are working. So the more controversial bit is that universities are focused on the research income. They are more the staff are more worried about bringing the money in terms of research funding than providing a life-changing experience to the students. So they are not focused on paying much attention to that bit of learning and teaching.
Right. I just got to comment real fast. I went to UCSD, which is a complete research institution, and I had to go work at a hospital to learn chemistry. I mean, I took courses, but to actually the hands-on chemistry, physics, like the actual, what is it? Right.
Yeah.
I worked. Yeah. So go ahead. I love that. Yeah. Good demonstration.
So now the problem with AR VR comes in that it's altogether a new or different technology. It's not something like creating your presentation, whether you want PowerPoint or PDF. It's not this. It's a step change from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional. So this is not something that can easily be adopted. So for academics, there should be if I ask myself, I would be looking for a shortcut, something that can quickly help me produce the content. I can quickly produce the content and put them in front of my students. I don't need to put an extra effort, and this is where EON-XR comes into play. That you don't need to do any sort of coding. You just go around, as you were saying, you scan things, upload it, and share it with your students. So this is a very strong point of EON platform, that you are able to quickly create your content. Now flipping the side and putting the onus to the students, because despite all this, even if it is not that difficult, as an academic, I might be engaged in so many activities that I may not be able to find a time to create the content myself. So let's talk about let's put the onus to the students, and let's ask them to create the content. So we have recently launched a competition, like you said in your course. You said you create something, anything that comes to your mind. So it's a similar idea. We have asked our students to create any contents with regards to, let's say, there is a museum in the university. Go and make some 360 of that museum, or capture something from that museum, library visit, or you go to the lab, high power lab or any electronics lab. You go there, make a tour, and then annotate bits and pieces in there. What is this equipment? What is the purpose? You can add the PDFs and the YouTube videos to support that information. So quickly you can create a lab environment with the bubbles of information here and there, and you can introduce the students about that lab or that facility that is available at your campus.
Yeah.
So the students are creating these contents, and hopefully the competition has just started. We are very much excited to see what they come up with, and we are looking forward to see their outputs. So this is one way. It's not about only the technical aspect, it's about the non-technical aspect as well, where you are introducing, for example, this is something, if a very nice Matterport or 360 of your top facility is created, you can always use that for your open days to invite more students for the next admissions. This is a good publicity thing that you can always use to attract more and more students. So talking about the research center, we are creating the content for 5 of our research centers. So enable to introduce the postgraduate students, the potential PhD and master students, about what sort of facilities we have, kind of initial training of that equipment, what sort of things can be done with those facilities. So this is a good publicity marketing possibility. And as you were saying, this is a short snap. You can quickly get an idea of what is there. So this is all really amazing. And with the help of EON-XR platform, it's going in the right direction, I would say.
I think that was maybe the most surprising thing to me when I first interacted with it, is because I did start, years ago, and I teach 2D design and I've done coding and all that, but that it drags it. I think one of the first questions I asked was, well, which of the files do I drag in? The answer was just a zip file. I'm like, really? So it just, that, I think that little thing can't be overlooked, because that makes it, now, because we already know how to drag JPEGs and PDFs and all that. So just that little fact to me is pretty huge, because now I don't have to understand the file structure, because that, now you're getting into which is the lighting and the camera angle and the skins. And then that's, 3D designer information, but most people don't know that. So that the ability to drag in a zip file is for me amazing. The other thing that I think is for teachers that we don't talk about enough is screen recording. So if you want to share your, like I do YouTubes all the time, but share those things with other people, and then they can go do a 3D experience later, that in-app screen recording for me is something I use all the time, like every day. And I just save stuff on my phone, put on my computer, and then I've got a library of things. So I just think for teaching, that's something probably we don't talk about enough, is just the, the ways that we share these experiences so that other people can learn. But yeah, I agree with you on the students, and one of the things I learned is even YouTube, like how people use that. Like there's stuff on YouTube, but we can all put stuff on YouTube. So I can put I can put my own lectures on there. Students can put their own conversations on there and then bring it in. And then the other thing I think about that is just, which level of education that you're in that experience. If you're at a doctoral level, you might be putting reference information, APA citations. Frameworks, things that you're studying at a doctoral level versus, if you're in your bachelor's degree, you might be doing, walkthrough experiences and like discussions. So yeah, talking about that, so students getting in there, do you think that's like a faster way? Because I feel like my students, they don't need as much information as when I work with, like teachers on they grab their phone and they just start kind of figuring it out in a very short time.
Yeah, probably this is bringing back to the point I was making earlier. This is a different generation, and as the time will pass, the gap is going to increase. It's my understanding. It might be wrong, but the gap between the academics and the student generation is going to increase if we don't catch up. So as this is what probably your experience is saying, is that students are quick adapters. They create contents and they are motivated and they are excited to learn these tools and develop the contents. So this is something, again, I would go back to the same point, that as academics we have to use the technology. I'm not specifically limiting myself to AR, VR.
Yeah.
It's just the technology in general. The technology should be supporting the educational process, and the need is more than ever. The expectation levels over the pandemic has been raised after the use of technology. So much technology. I mean, prior to pandemic, people would not have thought about recording any video lectures. There were very few academics who would prepare their video lectures and put them on the learning management system for their students. So it was all about going into the lecture theater, delivering the lecture, and you're done. But now there is so much material that is created that the students can always go back, look, revise, refresh. Now the expectation would be in the new normal that whenever you are delivering a lecture, there should be a recording, there should be a accompanied resource that is available for us in case we want to refresh something or we miss a lecture. So the expectations are raised. Now it's important to use the technology to meet those expectations, and AR VR is an element of that technology that can support the enhancement of the learning.
Well, that's a really good point. I'm trying to think how my life would have changed if I had recorded lectures, because we didn't have any.
Yes.
And I remember, panicking if you're missing something. So one engineering lecture is like so much information, like that messes up your entire term, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then if we go to the practical side of where the students have to do a lot of hands-on things. So again, there should be some sort of technology enhancement. I talked about the a robotic arm. So for example, you are in a remote setting and you are able to run your experiments with the help of the robotic arm. You are in a virtual world, you are controlling the robotic arm, you are connecting the components, you are trying to build a circuit, and then you are looking at the output of your circuit, so you are able to perform the experiment. This is just the electrical engineering example, but if we expand it to medicine, this has so many applications in medicine. So remote surgery, and then people are able to perform the surgeries or complex procedures without any fear of hurting or you know uh, hurting anyone, because this is all going into the virtual world. So if you don't put injection in the right place, it's not going to hurt anyone. It's just for your training. So you get a better confidence when you are going to deal with the actual patients or actual scenarios in your life. So with the help of this virtual world training, I think the studies have told us that the confidence level increases before you actually do the experiments.
Absolutely. I've seen some beautiful models lately of like pre and post surgery where they know kind of the size and where to go and, you know, what they're going to be doing, and they can make a better plan with the surgery team. And then they do another image after. And those hospitals and institutions and research facilities are putting those models up in places like Sketchfab for free so other people can learn from how they're doing them. So, you know, I myself am learning, and you know, certain types of kind of bypasses, all kinds of surgeries, and they're done in a little different way every time we move forward, because the medical devices are also changing along with all of this. So to be able to do things less invasive, and because it's less invasive, and I used to design medical devices, so that's why I think about this. You can't see as much. So, right, you can't just open everything up and see. So the plan beforehand and the imaging becomes even more important, the types of tools you're using. So I think this is changing kind of both fields together, the imaging field, the AR, VR field, and the way that medical, both companies and doctors are using these technologies together. It's fascinating.
So I haven't taken biology or medicine, but I have a understanding that previously or even up till today, uh, when the dissection is done on somewhere, there's a bunch of students who are overlooking that dissection, and they are so it's a limited capacity. You can't train more people because you don't have enough resources. But with AR and VR, you can dissect anything at any scale. So millions and millions of people can see how the procedure is happening, and then they can practice by themselves in the VR world as well. So this is something that is going to change the whole training paradigm. So it's not only medical. In electrical, for example, if you have to do some, let's say, you have to perform some hazardous activity, let's say something to do with nuclear or something to do with high power, high voltage. So that is very dangerous if you don't take the proper safety measures in the real world. But in the virtual world, you can do that experiment. You can train yourself before you are exposed to the actual setting.
That's fantastic. I mean, I just remember all the circuit diagrams that I've done, and it's a completely different way of learning in 3D than just diagrams on a piece of paper. I mean, a much better understanding. Yeah.
And there are so many concepts that need 3D visualization. This is another aspect probably we should highlight as well. So, for example, three-dimensional space concepts. There is a field of electromagnetic wave theory where you have to see the electromagnetic waves in the 3 dimensions to properly appreciate the patterns or radiation flow. But we learned it on a blackboard in 2 dimensions. It's very hard to visualize the 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z coordinates. But with the help of this 3D modeling, you are able to rotate up, down, left, right. You can visualize it from any angle, and that clarifies your understanding of how this object or how this pattern will be in 3 dimensions. And that really supports the understanding of the theory that is developed based on those basic concepts. So there are so many subjects in engineering that need 3D visualization, and with the help of 3D visualization, the concepts are built on. Unfortunately, in our time and up till now, we are just using 2-dimensional to show the 3D on a piece of paper or on a blackboard. But with the help of 3D model, it always helps. When you look around, you can rotate.
Yeah. That's one of the things I think that us professors need to voice, and I'm doing that. Like this weekend, I'm going to be at a education seminar, and I'm going to be doing like a 2-hour thing. But what I'm going to be concentrating on is showing opportunities to make more 3D content for learning. So because you and I kind of teach specific things. So it reminded me of the thing I teach with sound waves, because I teach audio engineering. So where do these sound waves go? Then how do you build construction to optimize sound waves in a recording technology? So now you're looking at, and in 3D it makes sense. In 2D it doesn't make sense. Like how do you know all the engineering and specifications of your walls and your materials and the density, and then you're dealing with all kinds of spectrum between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So, what does that look like on these different materials? What are the corners like? So, which is why I love audio engineering, because I could take my same engineering principles and just apply them to audio, because I love music. You see behind me, I play a lot of music. So I found audio engineering fascinating. So I already knew the theories and now doing real things. But if you made a model of different sound waves and wavelengths and different constructions in 3D, it would be a much better learning modality for the generation now and in the future, I think.
Exactly. And I'm not sure it will be a too specific example, but you have your time domain representation, and then you have frequency domain representation, and it's at times becomes very hard for students to grab what the signal look likes in time domain and how is the frequency domain representation. But in 3D world, you can easily see and when you can change the signal, or you can play with the signal, and you can see their representation in the frequency domain. And there are so many representations that are not 2D, that are 3D. So that helps to understand how the signal is in the time domain and the frequency domain. But this is a very specific example.
By the way, I'm a ham radio operator, so I know a little bit about signals.
Right.
So back in the day when that was important.
Yeah, you have a lot of things going on. Music, biomedical, sound.
Yeah, so I'm a tech plus back in the day. So I still have it. We actually have a ham radio antenna in the attic in my house. Yeah. Well, I'm married to an airline pilot, so radio frequencies are very big in our lives. So even no Morse code, believe it or not. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something a little different that I'm fascinated with, and I'm going to share my screen for a second on digital twins, if that's okay. I think it's another engineering principle that's really changing things around. So I made a little video with my LiDAR scanner on, let's see, make sure my sound, I don't need it to be on. I scanned my base amp, but just because it was square and it was easy to demonstrate with my phone, just, getting 3 points. And then I'd make a scan of this thing with the LiDAR on my phone. And then so the newer phones and iPads have that. And then you can just get a digital twin. But the idea for teaching for me, and then applying that to the real world, is so that students can see you can replace these twins. You can hide them behind the real object and then get information. So if I wanted to get information on like the frequencies of this base amp cone, and then, or maybe a manufacturing principle on how you can manufacture this more effectively, or when maybe which things fail first as far as things that plug in the back, you know, and those are common things. In a large scale, digital twins are used in, you know, entire operations or cities for like urban planning. And so it's combination of IoT devices, you know, sensors, and then having a model to look at and finding efficiencies in urban planning, manufacturing, all kinds of things. It's just me adding content there. But now I have this digital twin of this thing, and it's hiding behind. You can see, so I have the content attached to the twin, but you're seeing the real object. So I can sit anywhere in an office somewhere and start analyzing a process or analyzing efficiencies. And so digital twins, you know, it's newer in engineering and manufacturing, but it's a modality that really is changing things a lot. And I think just the idea of like, what is a digital twin? Why do you need it? How does it combine with IoT devices, Internet of Things? You know, what is the sensor technologies? And I think probably in your field is something that is probably, I'm sure that IoT is used in sensors and things. I was going to see about your ideas on that.
Yeah, definitely. So we are doing a lot of work on IoT as well, and we have a test bed which is connected to LoRaWAN and other technology for providing the coverage over larger areas for connecting multiple IoT devices. And this is very important to have what you are calling digital twin, but in my mind, it will be really, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because at the moment what I feel is that EON-XR what provides is this model, but the true digital twin is that you are able to experience the changes when the, let's say, environment changes or the parameter changes. So for example, in an industrial setup, you have your sensors connected to different machines. So for example, an engine, so you have a sensor connected to that engine which is recording its heat or temperature, and with the revolutions per minute or the speed of that engine, you are monitoring the temperature. So you should be able to, you know, simulate in a way that you change the speed and you are able to change see the change in the temperature. So you are basically replicating the real world scenario with a digital twin, which is actually performing in terms of performance. It's actually performing like the real one. So you can conclude how these parameters or this setting will affect your apparatus. So you can predict how long this apparatus will work, or if there is any fault going to occur, or is it working fine. So you are able to see the health or predict the health of your apparatus or equipment. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think that that's like the ultimate, right? So you can, your QA can be tested, you know, digitally, and it's super important in healthcare too. So one of the things that I in quality assurance was really, you know, critical safety of devices that you put in your body, because you don't want to, you know, harm somebody. And so aging technologies and what happens to materials in over time with heat, with change, with packaging is really critical. So that's kind of a similar thing, but in the medical that I've dealt with, that I think is, yeah.
So this will be, as you said, this will be ultimate thing. If I know is possible, but it needs a lot of effort. It's not possible within EON-XR at the moment, right?
Right, because you need to have a digital functional exactly. Digital model, and that, yeah. So that's why in digital twins, the way that like I'm using it now is more about attaching the artificial intelligence and sensor technology to a model, so you know like where the changes need to occur, versus the model is functioning as the data kind of producing data. Yeah. So
but that will be great if we can have that within the EON-XR platform. That will be amazing. As I said, the best thing of EON-XR is less effort, more productivity, more output, because you don't need to do any sort of coding. I know I've been working on the projects where students have to uh, my internies had to develop some models using Blender, and then they have to learn different softwares to create. Some are doing creating content on Unity, but it all needs background knowledge. You need to learn a tool, and then you have to get an expertise to develop something. But EON-XR is just kind of a plug and play thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Blender and Unity are, Unity I had to learn for spatial audio, which I teach. But there's like a billion things I don't know in there because I don't design entire game worlds. But that's what it does. And then same with Blender. I mean, working in to understand what orientation you're working in, if you're a 2D designer, is confusing. It takes a while to get. There's also a billion functions in Blender, which are amazing.
Well, this is taking me to this point of gamification in the learning, which is, we earlier on we were talking about our students, how their attention span, but the kids, they keep they stay hours and hours on playing Minecraft and other games. So over there, their focus is so much that they ignore what their parents are telling. So I'm just talking about my son. He can stay on playing game forever without even thinking if he's hungry or not. Yeah. So gamification is an important aspect as well. So if somehow we can introduce gamification in our learning content, that will be really great to keep our students engaged. And gamification in the virtual world will be icing on the cake, that you are able to play those learning games in the VR world.
Right. I'm going to show you one more little example because it's heading in that direction really fast, and so I'm really excited about this actually. So just with one of our new partnerships with ReadyPlayerMe, how now the avatars capture your motion and your image from your webcam, and then you customize it however you want. So and the other thing it allows, the new technology, is that you can put up to 3 assets at a time. So because it's Unity platform, it starts to become now closer to that experience. So once you can combine assets plus your avatar, so you can actually do things, right? So that's I think it's a giant leap in gamification within EON that's coming, I believe, in May, this release. And so I'm really excited about those things because I think that's one of my favorite things to do, is actually just put on my Meta Oculus goggles and just do things. I just love that environment. And I just think that that sensation of like yourself in your hands when you're doing and really grabbing things and moving things or using the force or whatever I'm doing in there is super engaging. And so I think those are going to be giant leaps in the platform as well.
Exactly. And Renah, we have been talking about remote surgery or the application of remote robots. Probably it's time to talk about the soft skills, the soft learning that the students can have using these platforms. You were talking about, the motion sensors, your eye movement, where are you looking? So these are things that can be really helpful in developing the soft skills. So for example, in developing the employability skills, so interviewing skills. So if you are in the form of an avatar, you are taking your interview, how your hands are moving, how is your confidence, how is your body movement, and getting a feedback on how you can improve your presentation skills when you are going for an interview. You get a boost in your confidence when you know that these are the things that you have already practiced and you have got the feedback. When you go in the real world setting, you are much mature and confident facing different people. So soft skills, improving the soft skills is another area that this technology is really helping. For example, the lawyers, they can practice the cases in the court in a virtual world, right? So these are all exciting things.
I 100% agree, and I'll tell you why. I wasn't ever the best student, but I was successful because of maybe my social skills. But I remember as a young engineer getting picked out to be the one to train in hospitals, train doctors. That's unusual for an engineer, and I didn't realize it until the time. But I'm a teacher, like that's what I love to do. I like to transfer knowledge, and so that skill set's lived with me. And I think in spatial meetings, for example, or in EON, where you can go in yourself or up to 6 people, or in the regular meetings where you can have even 20 people. But I like the spatial meetings. You can go in there, and then with this new modality with your avatars, present, talk to each other. You can even make a background that's like a presentation booth, or it could just be something that you're talking about, whatever. Like if you had a new thing that you wanted to bring in, or something you designed, or it could be anything. But I think that's transferring knowledge, and then watching that back is huge. I happen to also sing, so I learned watching myself in the mirror. I learned a lot about myself. Like, wow, it's how people perceive you. And between singing and actually my doctoral studies, where we did a lot of exercises on perception and how people perceive you and leadership, I've really learned a lot about how, you kind of take that for granted and really don't think about it. But when you actually go back and learn about it and think about it and practice it, it's something then becomes part of you, and you'll be more successful in your skills. And I teach in TVET or CTE. It's called CTE in the US, but career education. And those are soft skills are the thing that we're lacking the most, and we fail the most in education to give our students. And there's a lot of reasons for that in the US. Again, it's that, are you learning 4 years of problem solving and communication and transferring knowledge, or are you learning skills? And you really need both to be successful and mature along your career. So I like the spatial meetings for that a lot. I mean, you do see yourself interacting. You do have to talk to people. It is a recording. Yeah. So,
and artificial intelligence is playing a role here as well, because they, for example, recording your audio and looking at how many fillers you are using and ahs in your communication, giving a feedback how you can improve your communication, how can, if you're talking slow or fast, comparing it with a normal or successful examples. So artificial intelligence is helping to compare what you are doing with some of the successful samples, and giving you feedback on how you can improve on that. So an integration of artificial intelligence in this aspect is bringing a new dimension.
I love that. Boy, but so many people can use that.
Yes, exactly.
Including me. That's fantastic. That is something. And then the other thing is the soft skills, as far as, there's communication and problem solving, but I think working together or working with people around the world. One of the things that I've mentioned this probably before, but that I have trouble doing in class that I don't anymore, is getting industry to come in. And sometimes it's them, but sometimes it's the institution. There's papers to sign, and now there's all kinds of COVID protocols, and just having people to come in and all kinds of issues. But you can bring in someone in, like an engineer, and then go over a special design in class in a meeting in 3D with your students, and then work together. And
yes, yeah. Already the concept of metaversities is coming up, where we are talking about a global square where people can come, meet, talk, collaborate with each other in the virtual world. So you don't need to travel. Although this is not something some people like. They like to socialize, and so being social is part of human beings. We have to do that. But there is another aspect, that if we are able to collaborate remotely, as in an experience of a real world, this saves a lot of consumption in terms of CO2 emissions. The travel, you don't need to actually travel, which is good in a way for the planet. We are helping the planet by reducing the carbon dioxide emissions. But to have that experience that is fulfilling, this is important. Like people having Zoom fatigue, so this is something you are in a 2 dimension. It's very hard to keep staring at the screen, and you don't have the 3D experience. But somehow, if that experience becomes more realistic, that will excite more people to work and joint collaboratively work something, meet people. I saw a project where one of the university students, they created the main block of their university, where normally the students will come and talk about their routine or daily things. So it was a kind of a place where students would normally hang out. So they created it in the virtual world, and then they invited people to come there, and during the pandemic, and it was so amazing. The feedback was so great that people were feeling as if they were actually there on campus. They were feeling the environment, and they really liked the idea that in the virtual world they were able to communicate with their friends. And so the point is that it should be realistic in a way that everybody is happy to be in that environment.
I love that. That's come a long ways. I mean, I remember the first virtual worlds, and but where I teach as well, we have that. It was, so primitive when it started, but it's changing so quickly.
Yes.
And now that you can change, you can add, assets to your. I have a lot of ideas about how my world is going to look on my part that people are going to visit. Music in it and all this really cool stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So probably for a wider adaptation, it's very. You were talking about it has come a long way, but it still needs to go a long way for a wider adaptation.
Yes.
And the development in the technology is going to be very, very important. I mean, I don't know how long it will take Apple or Meta or Microsoft to develop those gadgets which are lightweight, less energy consuming, less troublesome when you are wearing them. So the headsets, if they are going to be smarter, if AR glasses, if they are part of your own glasses, that will be amazing. And I think the research and the development is going in that direction, and it will take some time, but that will be a critical point for me when actually this technology is adopted more widely by everyone.
Absolutely. And I think the glasses are huge, because right now the goggles, after about a half an hour, they're heavy, and, someone like my size I get tired, I want to do it longer, but glasses that are lighter would be a huge change. And I think, because especially if you're meeting with people and you want to hang out for an hour, or maybe you're going to teach in there,
Yes.
for an hour or two, it's there. I think, 2023, maybe we'll see those big changes in platforms like EON that are kind of hardware agnostic, where they work on everything. Would be so exciting to try with and really change things. I think you're right. I think it will accelerate the things that we're doing in the 3D space. And
as you know, already billions of dollars have been poured into this. So and the tech giants are working really hard to capture this market. So let's see who comes out as a winner, or there is a shared space where we get more options as customers, as users. Healthy competition is always good.
Definitely. Any last thoughts? We're coming to the end of our hour here,
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge advocate of using technology for supporting the student learning, and this is. I mean, even pre-pandemic, I've been involved in the projects and activities that were focused on somehow integrating technology in to support the student learning. But post-pandemic or during pandemic, post-pandemic, things have changed drastically, and I see two camps. One which are still in there, they don't want to change anything. They are stubborn. They are saying they want to go back to the or keep the traditional ways. And then there is another camp which are too much optimistic about these all the technologies that are coming up, as if they are going to replace the traditional learning and teaching. My personal view is that The technology is there to support, the technology is there to enhance, that it is there to supplement. It's not an alternative to your traditional ways. So as we were talking, we were saying that there are things that are better understood in the 3D world, but it's not that everything is going to be transformed into the 3D world. So this visualization aspect is going to augment and enhance the student learning. It's not going to replace it. So that these are my final thoughts, that we should always strive to get involved in and use and integrate this technology into the learning and teaching, but it's not an alternative, it's a supplement, and it should always be used as a tool to enhance.
I agree, and I love people, so I want to see people. Of course, I love traveling, and definitely, while you were saying that, I was thinking about not just in education, workplace, but other types of institutions. How I think, you see institutions really changing, and I really think, it's probably a good idea to think about how to kind of expand the world of institutions with 3D just in general, just to engage the next generation. Is probably an important thing that you brought up. I hadn't really thought about that until now, but I think that's what the next generation is expecting. So that'll be interesting to see that develop. So super. Well, Sajjad, such a pleasure. I mean, I could talk for another 2 hours with you. So let's do another one of these.
Pleasure is mine, Renah. Thank you very much for inviting and giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, and to our worldwide audience. Hope you enjoy this session. It's fantastic ideas, and we hope we help you to learn about EON, to learn about AR, VR, 3D, digital twins, microwave technology, all the things we talked about, and contact us for any more questions. We'll see you on the podcast, on YouTube, and out there in cyberspace, in the metaverse. So thank you, Sajjad.
Thank you, Renah. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
You too.